6:50 EP grant program meeting. My co-chair is on the left end of the dais, Councilor Gonzalez. And then we have members of the, we have Councilor Gustin, Council President Rippey, Councilor Martinez, Councilor Marshall, and Councilor Valenzuela. And then Ms. Nunez and Ms. Salgado, who are also members of the committee. And I'm going to pass it over to Paul Downey, who's in charge, staff in charge tonight.
All right, it's going, yes. I'll try to project my voices. I've been under the weather lately, so my voice is a little hoarse tonight, so you'll have to excuse me. So we could go to the next slide. Purpose of the meeting tonight, general information about the CEP process and discuss the process for fiscal year 24-25 grant. I'm going to try to move through most of this quickly since we try to leave more time for discussion by the committee members. You'll see the items that we're going to be discussing tonight. So we'll go to the next slide. General information. Reminder, CEP program is funded by a $1 per ton fee charged by Metro on waste disposal at Forest Grove Transfer Station. Currently, this is generating about $65,000 a year. Metro sets the overall structure and rules for the programs. We'll be talking some more a little bit. Some other general information is there actually is another fee that is charged at the transfer station. In addition to the $1 per ton fee, a facility may choose to collect additional what they call solid waste community investment fee of 50 cents per ton on all putrescible solid waste received by the facility, means waste that degrades, or a $1 fee per ton of all types of waste that are not subject to any solid waste community enhancement fees. Currently, Waste Management is choosing to assess the 50% per ton fee. They do have some choice on which fee they do collect. Community investment fee, so to date, has generated $24,495 and may generate another additional $16,000 before the end of this current fiscal year. For fiscal year 24-25, Metro has determined that the community investment fees can be included in the CEP grant process. Apparently, Metro is going to be having some more discussions about what community investment fee can be used for, but for this next year, we've been told by Metro staff they're going to let us use it on the CEP. Staff recommends only budgeting to date what we have received for the 24-25 grants with respect to the community investment fee. Committee reviews grant applications for Metro eligibility criteria. Goals. The committee may add more restrictive eligibility requirements and may adopt additional funding goals. He's added one more essentially. Okay, so project criteria eligibility must meet the following criteria. Project must be located in the solid waste community enhancement boundary area as specified by the Solid Waste Community Enhancement Committee. That boundary for you is the urban growth boundary. Or the project must benefit individuals or programs located inside the solid waste community enhancement area boundary. I'm not going to go through all the criteria eligibility. You got to be a 501c3, although that's how the Metro written rules are. However, they do allow, like the chamber, to apply, or other 501c6s or 501c5, 6 is the fourth mix, that they do allow for some of the other 501c3s to apply, even though they're just have the 501c3 in there. Schools, local governments, or other special districts, and we do not allow. City has decided right now that we're not allowing boards and commissions, city boards and commissions, to apply for the funding. The next page, skip over this. Most of you have seen it. Okay, so the goals of the project. Host of the project is required to meet one of the following goals: improve the appearance or environmental quality of the community, reduce the amount of toxicity of waste, increase reuse recycling opportunities, rehabilitation or upgrade of real property, personal property owned by a not-for-profit having 501 status, preservation and enhancement of wildlife, riparian wetlands, forest lands, and marine areas. Result in improvement to or an increase in recreational areas and programs. Result in improvement in safety, benefit seniors, youth, low-income persons, or underserved population. Council has added an additional goal. The projects be evaluated on how the project enhances sustainability in the city while achieving the value described in these mission goals. Current year program funding was split into two programs. One, a community impact grant fee for $30,000 for years. After you reviewed the applications, you decided to award a one-year $30,000 community impact grant. That was to Hope Community Network to hire a manager to manage their house that they were trying to rent, that they were going to put homeless individuals in. To date, that grant recipient has not spent any of the funds and may not spend any of the funds before the grant expires on June 30th, 2024. Unspent funds must be returned to the city and will be put back to the CEP. You also awarded 3 one-year $10,000 grants. Partial funding of grants, as has been done in previous years, was not allowed during the current year. In the fiscal 20 year 22-23, you awarded the City Parks and Recreation. You allowed them to fund recreation scholarships, and then you carried that amount over to this current fiscal year. The initial amount was $26,338, and as of December 31st, 2023, $1,235 in scholarships have been funded. For the upcoming year, current CEP revenue is estimated to be approximately $60,000 per year. The city charges 6% overhead charge, so there's about $60,000 in revenue available for grant awards for the coming fiscal year. There's going to be an estimated $3,400 in beginning CPE fund balance. That does not take into account if any of that $30,000 happens to come back, because that wouldn't come back until from the CIG, because that wouldn't come back next fiscal year. There is $20,495 in community investment fee funds that are available as we have received those. That's the amount we received through December 31st, 2023. As I said earlier, we can use those funds for CEP programs next year. So for fiscal year 2024-25, the funding available, staff's assuming that the remaining $23,883 in remaining scholarship funds will be allowed to be carried over to fiscal year 24-25 for that purpose. If it's not, you could add that money that would be made available for CEP grants. So excluding that money, staff estimates there's approximately $88,708 in funding available for next year, which includes the $3,400 in beginning fund balance. Staff's recommending allocating $80,000 for fiscal year 24-25 grant funding. This is $20,000 more than what we gave out in the current fiscal year. This will leave roughly $8,700 in unallocated funding to allow for any shortfall in projected revenue. For example, if the funding is unexpected drops in transfer. Staff's recommending that we spend the CIF funds first next year, since we were allowed to spend those CEP coming year, but following. Other of what considerations for next year's funding, staff got together and talked about what staff might recommend the process look like next year. And staff recommends the committee make the grant award process simpler by awarding all grants for a one-year period, using the $80,000 in funding available to awards at different levels, maybe with one large grant. We have several mid-sized grants and several smaller grants. For example, one $20,000 grant, 4 $10,000 grants, 4 $5,000 grants, spend the $80,000. So that's just an example of staff is thought up for the committee. So questions for next year, next slide. Does the committee agree with carrying over the recreation scholarship program to fiscal year 24-25? We want to continue the 3-year community impact grant program or award grants on a one-year basis. Does the committee want to continue the CEP process where there are a limited number of grants and the full amount requested is awarded? Remember, prior year or last year, we used to allow partial awards. Last year, we did not allow partial awards. The whole committee had to agree on the grants that were awarded. If we're going to do that, how many grants and at what amounts? What amount do you want to award grants?
Okay, so there's co-chairs, so I want to look at Counselor Gonzalez. How do you want to run this together? Do you want to take over and facilitate? Is that microphone working?
Yeah, I would like to borrow this. And there's no light turning on this far one.
Oh, it's
so-
probably not on the bottom.
Let's pick it up and
All
turn
right.
it on.
Okay. Like,
Next slide.
Sorry, Counselor Gonzalez.
wow.
Setting you up to fail.
No, actually, there's like a little tab here that says the instructions. I just failed to read them. So, thank you, Counselor. I appreciate it. First, I just want to say buenas tardes to everyone. Love my time that I get to share with you on this committee. And also want to thank our committee members, Marisa Salgado and Leslie Nunez. If you recall, last year, Metro staff made some changes to the committee structure to allow for community voice and community involvement in the criteria for the grant making and grant funding. And so, just want to thank our committee members as well as the council for the hard work, and especially the staff for tracking the changes that the Metro staff have made. And I know that there's been an important amount of communication back and forth. So Paul, thank you. Jesse, thank you, and to all the other teammates that I'm sure I'm missing here. Just specifically with the questions that you have here, I think it'd be great if we can. Let's see. Yeah, that slide is perfect there. Mayor, I'll hand it back to you.
Okay.
This is your council, and welcome the conversation. Feel free to call on me as anyone else, and just looking forward to a good dialogue, and hopefully we can get to consensus.
Yeah, thank you, Counselor. And I just want to we are co-chairs, so at any point, I'm collaborative, so definitely pop in. But I also think too, I really appreciate Marisa and Leslie helping. So I know when I first got elected on council, sometimes I was like, oh, when can I talk? But I want to make sure that you have space to share your opinion. So I think we'll just go through bullet point. Oh, wait, before we go through bullet points, are there any questions from the presentation?
Yes, I'd like one clarifying question. That has to do with the definition of a solid waste community enhancement area boundary.
That is our urban growth boundary.
It's the urban growth boundary?
Yes.
I-
The committee established very early in the program, in the 90s, the committee established city's urban growth boundary as that area.
I had one question as well, and I should have I want to apologize because I should have asked you this before tonight. With the $5,000 grants, like typically are those more for events, like nonprofit events?
Actually, I had one more point on the slide. If you could flip this, there's one more consideration. If you go to the next slide really quick. Previous years, for example, the events such as the Chalk Art Festival got funds. Recently, the city established the tourism-related events within the TLT from Transient Lodging Tax Funds. Since those events are now potentially eligible for TLT funding, does the committee want to include or exclude those events from potential CEP funding?
Well, that's
They
actually,
would be eligible for TLT funding.
yeah, that's actually why I asked my question about the $5,000 is like when in a few bullet points, we're going to discuss the award amount for the grants. And so I'm trying to figure out if those smaller grants are more events, then do we need smaller? I don't know, well, we can discuss that. But that's what I was trying to figure out is like those in the past, do you know off the top of your head if the $5,000 grants are more for events or?
Now, we've had numbers of grants through the years where you've got smaller not-for-profits that actually the smaller grants fit their needs, and maybe
Okay.
not even a $10,000 grant, but maybe even smaller grants, because Forest Grove tends to have more smaller nonprofits than say some of the other largest places that may have more larger, well-established nonprofits than to have smaller, for example, nonprofits for the most part.
Okay, cool.
Mayor, I have a question.
Yes, Counselor Gonzalez.
For the TLT funding, what's the process that these events are going to go through in terms of for securing fund? Are they going to be like, are they essentially line items? Is it a competitive process?
We made $40,000 available for TLT funding for
Okay.
events, and there is a formal application, there's a formal
Okay.
process the council recently adopted. That they have to do an application, then that's reviewed by the Economic Development Program Coordinator, and then I believe they will be coming on the city council on the consent agenda, the city council consent agenda for approval.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, I don't know when you want to start having a conversation, or we can keep
We'll
with
start.
questions.
So let's go, Mariah, can you go back to the previous? Let's go bullet point by bullet point. Okay, so does the committee agree with carrying over the recreation scholarship program to fiscal year 2024 and 25? I see nods, thumbs up here. Leslie, Marissa, what are your thoughts? So this was before you got on the committee, we used some CEP funding for our new recreation program to offer scholarships to kids who might need it to be able to participate. So we would just carry this funding over. Okay, thumbs up by Leslie.
Marisa, I'm not sure if I'm not sure if there's like she's commenting in the chat. I'd love to hear.
Okay, so we have, I think we have enough of consensus.
Okay,
with-
yeah, for sure.
I don't know. Oh, there we go.
Just in
Raised
case.
hand.
Just in case.
Okay, good. Yeah, we got a raised hand from Marisa. Okay, so number 2, does the committee want to continue the 3-year community enhancement grant program or award grants on a 1-year basis? Council President Rippey?
I would recommend that we do that, and I think the rationale that we used last year or the 2 previous years for doing this way is that when you're talking about nonprofits and their ability to apply for other grants, it's extremely important for them to have multi-year funding so that they can then apply for other grants and say, I've got this going on. The other thing is also when they're going out and doing fundraising, it's important for them to be able to identify the fact that they have these multi-year revenue streams in order to convince donors to provide some more additional funds for their activities. So, I also thought it was a way to have a tremendous impact with regard to the projects that they were applying for. So, in my thinking, I think the multi-year is the rationale for it is still legitimate, and I would like to see that we can continue to do that.
Any other thoughts, considerations? So just to remind the group, last year we did not do a 3-year impact grant. So I'm kind of torn about this 3-year personally. So if we did the 3-year community impact grant, then what would be left?
It would depend on how much you allocated for that 3-year impact. For
So what
example,
did we do in the past?
If you did 3 years for 30,000 again, you'd have about $50,000 to
$50,000.
allocate next year. How much you had in future years would be dependent on what kind of revenue was there.
Yeah, but and last year we did a 1-year CIG grant instead of the 3-year. They made a 3-year request, but we funded 1
You
year.
did the 1-year grant because the grant you approved last year was you wanted them to work with the county to start funding that because since it was
Complicated.
you all thought it was an expense the county should be funding through their homeless funds, but you were willing to give them 1 year's worth of seed money while they worked with the county to try to get those funds approved.
Yeah, I'm almost to the point with this that I would rather give 1-year grants that are larger and have more flexibility and have people come back. I'm indifferent, I would say. Well, I don't know if I'm indifferent. I could go either way with the 3-year community impact grant. Yes,
No, I support the 3-year program. I think it's important for them to know that they can count on that, as small as it may be, but they can count on that funding.
So let's ask for consensus.
And
So if you are in favor of continuing the 3-year grant, can you give me either a thumbs up or a hand raised? Marisa, if that works best too. 1, 2, 3. I know, me and we're like this. So we have 5 on the dais.
I have a question.
Okay, yes, Leslie, go for it.
So, what would the following year, what would that application process look like? Or if it's granted for 3 years, then you wait to receive new applications?
Yeah, so we would only have the community impact grant every 3 years. So if they were awarded a grant this coming cycle, then they would have it for 25, 26, 26, you know what I'm saying? And they wouldn't have to do anything else.
Yeah, and then each following year, my understanding. Hey, Leslie, this is Juan Carlos. That the subsequent years for this committee, the 30,000 would be subtracted from our total fund for the next few years. So yeah,
Just taken off the top every
yeah, take it off the top.
Correct.
Or whatever amount the committee would agree to for the SIG grant. It doesn't have to be a certain, I mean, it could be whatever amount the committee wants it to be, whether it's 30 or 20 or
15,
whatever it could be.
yeah.
So
And is there history of doing this in the past?
We did our very first one 4 years ago.
Yeah, so we actually created it. It was
Yeah.
the desire
Oh.
to have more. Sorry, Leslie. It was the desire to have a deeper impact over a longer period of time. The process before we created this, it was a spreadsheet that had been, mastered essentially, where every person on the committee had, essentially a portion of money that you could allocate, and then that money was added up. So you would maybe have a few awards getting 3,000, some getting 8,000. So it was more of a piecemeal approach, and we wanted to kind of get a little bit deeper with our impact. So that's where the CIG came from. Just to add my own thoughts here, I feel there's strong support from the council on the CIG. So that's I'm okay supporting that. I also feel like it wouldn't be a terrible idea to also be able to give more $20,000 grants or $15,000 grants. So I guess at this point, I will go with the will of the council and support that effort. I mean, at the end of the day, we're going to be giving money to an important cause, so that's great. We're kind of in a not so tough situation here.
I have a question.
Yes, go ahead.
Are you guys able to elaborate the positives and negatives in each matter as doing the 1 year or doing the long term?
Yes, it's subjective, but I'll try to do my best to give like a just a factual. The benefits of the CIG 3-year is that it gives more financial security as a nonprofit trying to do something new. So they have funding for 3 years. With that funding then they can go for their grant applications and say they have matching and that they're funded for 3 years. It really would allow a nonprofit to get off the ground, like that is starting, like maybe a new nonprofit. Am I forgetting any other pros of the CIG?
Essentially, if I could phrase it too, let's say that you have a community effort. You're essentially, if you ask for 30,000 over 3 years, you are essentially receiving $90,000 over 3 years to implement your program. I mean, that's a more significant amount of resources than say you get one $10,000 grant to do maybe a one-time project or something like that. So again, it supports like a more sustained vision for Forest Grove and for the surrounding community to come up with ideas and know that they'll have support from, their local government. So that's the pro there.
Yeah, and then I'd say for a yearly, the other option would be yearly grant funding, is that you can reach more nonprofits because that $90,000 is separated into either $20, $10, or $5,000 grants each year, right? So you can, your reach is wider.
If there's a 1 year contract or for this, and they want to come back, are they able to come back and request it for the second year, or do they have to start everything over again?
They could have come back. You can come back and apply as many times as you want. There's no limits on applying.
That's true, but from our past, what we used to have prior to this was we had a multitude of nonprofits coming back year after year after year. Basically, they were asking for operational funds. It wasn't a new project. It was just, I want to continue my program year after year after year. And so we thought if we were able to do a impact grant, that would, as Juan Carlos said, provide some sustainability for a program as opposed to a one-off project. So I do think that there's sufficient money here to do both. So I wouldn't say one excludes the other. I think that depending upon the dollar amount, we could have at one or two of the larger grants and one or two of the smaller grants. And one is focused on sustainable program and the others are focused on one-off project. That's my thinking anyway.
Any further questions on this bullet point?
Just to add, so Marisa, one of the cons of the multi-year is that we're locking up our money for 3 years as a committee. So in future years, we can give less money. Just to answer your question about pros and cons.
Thank you very much.
Of course.
Okay, so so if you would like to see the 3-year CIG program continue, give me a thumbs up.
Yeah.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Okay, there's consensus for that.
Yeah, there's consensus. Thank you.
Okay, next one. Does the committee want to continue the CEP process where there are limited numbers of grants and full amount requested is rewarded? So this is like what we did last year, where we all decided, right? There was consensus, and we fully funded the grant. I think that's the best approach, personally. I don't know. Is there a consensus to continue with that? Can I get a thumbs up?
Well, I was looking at a combination. That's really what I was thinking of doing was.
Well, the question is, okay, even, let's say you do the
like that.
$30,000 CIG grant, let's say you've set $30,000 aside for it, that would leave you $50,000. For the $50,000, do you want to establish like a certain number of grants at a specific dollar amount? Somebody has to apply for that grant, and let's say you have twice as many applicants as what you have for those dollar pools. Prior years, you used to split that up. Last year, we went to the process where you either approved a grant in full
Yes.
or it didn't get approved. And that's essentially this question. You want to
That's
stick
what
with
this
the
question.
Yes.
Yes. Is
Yes.
there
Yeah, I think
consensus
so.
for that? So we'd fully fund the grant instead of partially funded. I see
feels the best
1,
to me.
2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Marisa, are you good with that? Okay, perfect. Thanks. Okay, there's consensus with that. Okay, so now we get to talk about how many grants and the amounts we would like for the grant.
I would set the CIG grant first, and because that'll drive what you do with the other.
Let's keep it at 30. I don't know what folks think.
Okay.
That's a good number, I think.
Is there consensus to keep the CIG grant at $30,000 a year for 3 years? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Yes, we got full consensus there. Okay, so that leaves 50. No, yeah, that leaves 50.
50,000 for next year.
So do we do 120, 210, and 25? That's what I'm throwing out. Is that 50?
Folks think.
Boom.
I'm curious what folks think about different combinations. I think it's a good recommendation, but
Do you guys have any other ideas?
Might as well try
Oh, this
it.
looks good.
Perfect.
Counselor, I don't know if you said something, Counselor Martinez. I think I.
Oh, I just said might as well try it.
Oh yeah,
Why
okay,
not?
great. I didn't hear from over here, so why don't
Sure.
you just confirm? Yeah, I mean, I think it gives us the ability to, like Council President Rippey was saying, it gives us our ability to do a few different things, a sizable impact, but also kind of some fun projects as well. So I like the flexibility of the 20, 10, 10, 5, 5 myself. I think it's a healthy breakdown.
Anyone else have a different thought? Okay, is there consensus for 1 20,000 grant, 2 10,000 grant, and 2 5,000 grant? If there's consensus, give me a thumbs up, please.
Nice.
Okay. Yes, we're all together. Okay, and then the last question was, should we exclude projects that would qualify for the TLT? I think yes. Sorry. I've already thought about this. I think yes.
We should do what?
We should. Can we switch to the next slide, please, Mariah? In previous years, such events such as the Chalk Art Festival, received CEP funds. Recently, the city established funding for tourism-related events with the TLT tax fund. Since events are now eligible for TLT funding, does the committee want to exclude from CEP funding events that would be eligible for TLT funding? Like, isn't that why we did
I'm
it?
hearing you say yes, but I want to think through this real quick.
Okay.
Just like here's my train of thought. So there's a competitive fund with TLT, and an event that we love and cherish might apply through that. They might not get funded. So then that means that then because they applied to TLT, they can't apply to CEP. But I mean, I've spent 9 years of my career in grant writing for a nonprofit, so it's like the question of begets. And so it's like it's possible that an event could apply for both and not get both, but it's possible that they apply for both but only get one. And it's kind of hard to know, to plan your event, expect that you're going to get TLT funding, not get it, but maybe you would have gotten the CEP. So I'm kind of trying to think through that dilemma. And also, I think we can and that's why I asked the question earlier about when do we expect the cycles to be? Do we expect they're going to be close, pretty windowed out, like 6 months intermission? And with that, could we factor that into our decision making, depending on if someone has received the TLT fund or they've a CEP fund, and try and maximize the resources? Just trying to make sure events get money, because events are expensive. As we all know. So anyway, sorry to push back on that,
No,
but
and I
just an idea.
They can apply for TLT funding anytime they wish, but I think we've got applications for probably most of the TLT money already.
It's probably safe to say that the amount that's been allocated for the TLT events program is going to be fully spent, if not overspent, before the year is out.
Yeah. So, and I think you brought up a good point, because we still have a check. Like, if we don't think, like, if they've received funding and we don't think they should receive more funding, we just won't fund the project.
Just an idea to share.
Are we asking the question?
I don't know. No. I'm like, no, I don't know. Thanks, Counselor. Council President Rippey.
So I think you bring up a good point. On one hand, you want to be fair. On the other hand, with the limited amount of resources that Forest Grove has to go around to have an impact on the city, I'm not particularly interested in what I would call duplicative funding, so that the result would be where they actually got both grants. That, I think, we could do better than that. So if there's a way to either schedule the applications or track them so that if you are awarded a TLT grant, then you can't apply for the CEP grant, and vice versa.
I also got to remember, some of these events might not qualify for CEP money anyway, due to some of the requirements of CEP.
Yeah, fair. Yeah. I don't know all the events that applied for TLT, but there's just more so wanting to make sure we don't preempt something soon. So I like that clause of if awarded, but not like if you apply for it, then you can't apply for it. It's more so
Right.
if you're awarded, then this is.
Yeah, I also don't want to create more work for staff. So I feel like it's our check. Like, when people come for CEP funds, they present, we question. So we can ask the question, were you awarded TLT funds? Right? And then, but I don't want to have,
What can you do it on the other side where TLT, you would have to ask for?
I mean, so that's the thing, it's like,
It's not going to be hard for Paul to know who got the TLT.
Oh, no, that's,
It's, you know,
okay, Counselor Gustafson,
I think
can you use your microphone so they can hear you?
it was really loud when I was eating before. Sorry. Um, I feel like we should allow people to apply for either, because CEP can be something separate than what a qualifier for TLT would be. And we may decide as a council, you know what, both of those needs for this organization are fantastic for Forest Grove. And then we make the decision at that point. If the same entity applies for both, we're gonna know, okay, they've received this one or they've applied for this one, but we really think this other one is such a good thing for the city that we're gonna buy into both. I would hate to take away that that power from us if somebody just has two fantastic ideas that are completely separate.
Further discussion points? Okay, I'm hearing, but I want to double check. So I'm hearing consensus to not exclude people who have applied for TLT funding, to not exclude. So if there's consensus for that, can you give me a thumbs up? To not exclude. Does that make sense? Am I saying
Yeah.
that right?
Yeah.
Or not exclude.
So people could technically apply for both.
Okay.
I think we can stop them playing, doesn't mean we have to.
Right.
give it.
Award it.
And then we make the decision based
Exactly.
on it. Yeah.
Okay. Sounds good. Paul, do you have enough?
I have enough, but I want to,
One more thing?
one more thing.
Okay, you have
We can
4
kind of
minutes.
Prove what we've just done in the motion, is so we take action, so we start the process and get the application ready. Kind of a recap. Committees agree with carrying over the recreation scholarship for fiscal year 24-25, continuing to do a 3-year $30,000 CIG grant, and to do one $20,000, two $10,000, and two $5,000 CEP grants. Not exclude people from being able to apply for CEP grants if they can apply for TLT funding as well. Kind of recap that. If someone just wants to make a motion to approve that, then I think we can go.
I'll move that we approve the actions that Paul outlined.
Second.
Suck.
Well done. Elegant.
CEP
Elegant. Elegant.
We got it. I got it. It's not a
So
problem.
then
Make him repeat it later.
What he said.
it was CEP recommendations were moved by Council President Rippey and seconded by Councilor Marshall. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign. Please say aye. Hearing none, the motion is approved by the committee in a vote of 8-0. There's one further thing, like really quick. Do we need to discuss, we received an email about the community impact grant from last year. And do we have time to discuss that really quick? From Hope Kramer.
Staff didn't get it till Thursday, so staff hasn't had a lot of time to consider it. And I sent you guys, essentially, an email in November. And we talked,
Right.
we kind of, when they said they may apply for it. And so I said that we'd have to consider establishing a process if you were going to reconsider it. One, did the purpose of what they were applying for qualify under the CIG grant. There's not a lot of specifics in the memo about what they would specifically, they just want to hire a part-time program manager, but they didn't elaborate a lot on what that person would do, how they would do it. And then they said after they rented the house, they would pull the house manager's job in that position together. Well, there's not a lot of detail in the memo that was given so far. For example, the county, when they went to the county for the housing, the county did not approve their request for the second, third year because the way the county wants to do their program and the way Health Community Network wants to do their program is different. They didn't get that, and so they're probably not going to receive that money. So that they've not been able to rent a house so far, and they read some of the stuff. I think they unsure whether they're going to be able to house. To me, this isn't, I know Hope said it's just a minor change, but I don't think it's just a change.
Has this happened before?
We
Where someone's been awarded a grant and wants to change?
We typically do not repurpose grant awards once given.
That's where I'm at with it. I just think that they can reapply at
Yeah.
the next cycle.
Yeah, and we're, like I said, if they want to reapply, we're so close to the next process going.
Okay. Cool. Thank you very much. Okay, I'm going to adjourn this work session. Can we take, I know we're running late. I would like to call to order this meeting of the Forest Grove City Council on February 12th, 2024 at 7:06 p.m. Will the city recorder please call roll?
Counselor Gustafson?
Here.
Council President Ribby?
Here.
Counselor Martinez?
Here.
Counselor Marshall?
Here.
Counselor Valenzuela?
Here.
Counselor Ewing?
Absent?
Counselor Mayor Wenzel?
Here. Thank you. Forest Grove City Council meetings are located on the land of the Tualatin Kalapuas, who call themselves the Atfalati. They are now part of the Confederate Tribes of Grand Ronde. Would the audience and council please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. On the move. Next up is our board. Come up, join me. So tonight, for those of you who do not know, this is Paul Downey. He is our assistant city manager and our finance director, and has been with the city of Forest Grove for the last 50 years. Oh wait, I'm just kidding. It just feels like that. Just feels like it to Paul. Just kidding, 25 years. So I'm going to read a little bit that Jesse prepared. We just want to say thank you to Paul. He knows everything about everything in the city. Maybe not about other things, but for the city, he knows everything. Okay, so Paul Downey started with the city of Forest Grove as the finance director on January 4th of the last century, or 1990. He continued in that job for 21 years until adding another job title, that of assistant city manager in 2021. He's been the assistant city manager and the finance director ever since, comprising 25 years with the city. In true Paul fashion, when he was hired, he noted in his employee bio that during his spare time he liked to tear out grass and wade in the streams, which other people affectionately call golfing. He also noted he likes to read and referee soccer games, especially those of his kids. No adults. So this is from a long time ago. Although his hobbies may have changed over the years, thankfully his sense of humor has. Okay, Paul graduated from Oregon State with a degree in business and is a certified public accountant. Before coming to the city, he was an auditor for Benton County, then director of finance for Columbia County. Paul continues to leave an indelible mark on the city's financial stewardship and has greatly assisted the city towards accomplishing its goal of being responsible stewards of the city's financial resources. He was the architect behind the city's levy, the city's reserve policy, the city's retirement smoothing account. That's Paul. And the city's investment success in the defined benefit system. He also serves as the city's risk manager and manages administrative services. Paul is a treasure trove of city history and the go-to person for the what, how, when, and where of city policy. His dedication is without parallel, and the city continues to always remain in his best. And the city continues to always remain in his best. On behalf of the city, it is my honor and privilege to recognize and thank Paul for his service. And to get an award.
I think Jesse gave me like 30 minutes to talk tonight, so. I'd leave too if I was you. No, just kidding. So, thank you, Mayor and councilors and Jesse. So, I'd also like to thank my wife who's present here tonight, who has had to endure all my night meetings and long weekends preparing the budgets over the last 25 years. It's been fun at times, but it's been very rewarding. I also like to thank a lot of my kids are here tonight. So, it's one of my grandkids too, who wants to get out of here about as quickly as he can, but as he says, I don't want to come to these meetings. So I've enjoyed the years with the city, being able to serve the public. Look forward to a couple more months of service at least, I think. So I just want to see Jesse's reaction when I said that. So no, it'll probably be more than a few months. So one of my kids asked me, "Is going to be a surprise retirement announcement tonight?" And I said, probably not. Now, I've seen a lot of changes over my years with the city, and that's one thing we just have to live with in government. Things are always changing, and we're always having to adjust what we do and how we do it. This position is, as the mayor said, a very interesting position, as it seems everything eventually crossed my desk before everything, I think, sometimes. But I've been fortunate to work with a lot of good people over the years, and I think that's what made the job so good. Is the people I worked with, not so much the work that gets done all the time, but the people you work with. I wouldn't have stayed here as long as I have if I hadn't enjoyed working with people, working with the people I work with. Got a lot of good staff. Many have actually who have been here longer than I have on my department. So I've got some staff with probably almost 40 years in, and some less. But one thing you're gonna have to live with, Jesse, is we're probably all gonna be retiring right about the same time. Big bubble for you to fill in the middle of the park. So have fun in future years. And it's been fun. I've enjoyed the projects I worked with over the years, the library expansion, the library model, constructing this building 20 years ago, the purchasing the Times Litho project and working on Jesse Quinn. I've been involved in that project the whole time, and I look forward to getting it done once the site be developed. Things to do before I retire. And also, more recently, the City Hall building and the project over there that was years in the making, but it turned out really well. But as Jesse said, financial stewardship, like I said, financial stewardship has always been important. We've always received positive comments from the auditors. Plan out our budgets 5 years. We just don't look at 1 year. We plan it out. Services we provide, we continue to provide those over time as best as we can. But just closing again, I like what I do. It's providing service to the resident city is challenging, but I really enjoy it. Look forward to continue doing it for at least a few years. I'd like to thank you.
Let's go, Paul! Thank you, Paul. So if Paul's family wants to leave and take pictures out in the foyer area, that's great. You're not punished to a whole city council meeting. Except for Cameron. Have a seat, Cameron. Okay, thank you. We're going to move on to item B on the agenda, which is public comment. Time provided for anyone wishing to speak to City Council on an item not on the agenda or on the agenda but not scheduled for a public hearing. Comments are limited to 2 minutes unless additional time is granted by the presiding officer. The public comment period shall not exceed 30 minutes unless a majority of councilors present vote to extend the time. Zoom attendees may use the raise hand option to be called on. Okay, our first public comment is Miss Robin Lindsley. Please come up to the microphone in the seat. Thank you.
I just wanted to say that I really appreciate that you're giving it so much thought like you did tonight, and that I was happy to be here for that. Because the taking away suddenly of the $5,000 a year generally that we got for our functioning forced us into looking for money elsewhere, right? But we did get another $5,000 from Quality Soil and Water Conservation District. But the idea of going over 1 year project and coming back every year, like Tim said, that would be really nice not to have to do that. So we will probably be applying for a larger grant and do it in collaboration with all things food, obviously, Taste and See, St. Vincent de Paul, the Senior Center that constantly needs more support, and Dairy Creek Community Food Web for helping lots of those things happen. So thank you for the consideration that you've given.
Thank you. Is there anyone else in the audience who would like to give public comment? Seeing none, are there any Zoom attendees that would like to give public comment? I don't see any attendees. Okay, then we're going to move on to item C, our consent agenda. Items under the consent agenda are considered routine and will be adopted with a single motion without separate discussion. Councilors who wish to remove an item from the consent agenda may do so prior to the motion. Any items removed will be discussed and acted upon following the approval of the remaining items. What is the wish of the council?
I'd like to remove item C1, please.
Okay.
I'd like to remove item.
Well, wait, we got to get a second on the.
Sorry,
C.
second.
Okay. Council President Rippey wished to remove item C1. It was seconded by Councilor Gustafson. Is that good enough, or do I need to get a vote on that to remove it?
Actually, I don't believe it needs a second. I
Oh, you
think it's
just remove
just
it.
request to take it off, and it's off, and it becomes a separate agenda item after the
Okay.
consent agenda is passed.
Sorry. Thank you. Did you want to remove something too?
I would like to remove C2.
Okay. So I have items C1 and C2 removed from the consent agenda. So is there a motion for C3 and C4?
I move that we approve consent agenda items C3 and C4.
Second.
Consent agenda items C3 and C4 were moved to be approved by Councilor Rippey and seconded by Councilor Gustafson. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. All of those opposed, please say aye. Hearing none. Consent agenda items C3 and C4 were approved by the Forest Grove City Council in a vote of 6-0. Okay, Councilor Rippey, or Council President Rippey, do you want to talk about item C1?
So my, what I'd like to say about item C1, the watershed in my time on council is probably one of the most wise and strategic decisions that a council made over 100 years ago. We are, to my knowledge, one of the few, if not the only, municipality in Washington County that has its own watershed. The quality of water is extremely important, and so therefore and that watershed provides, if I remember correctly, about 56% of our water resources throughout the year. The rest coming from Barney Reservoir and Hag Lake. So maintaining the water quality up in our watershed, it requires a sound management plan. And while I am not opposed to the management plan as it that was presented here, the staff is recommending that it be a consent agenda item every year. And notwithstanding the difficulty it is to get things scheduled, I think this is important enough that we either see it every other year, or more, I think more apt would be that when the Public Works does their annual update, that the watershed be included in that annual update. I think in the past, it's been mostly related to streets and those kinds of things, and not the watershed. But if we're going to do the management plan as a consent agenda, then the reason I'm saying this is both council and the public needs to hear what's going on with our watershed area. And putting it in the consent agenda does not give, in my opinion, does not give either the council or the public an opportunity enough to comment on a very important strategic asset to the city.
Jesse?
Sure, just a couple comments. Thank you for the comments, Councilor Rippey. Just a brief clarification. We do have a presentation on the watershed every year. It does come in the fall typically, and we do try to make it at the same time as with Public Works. This is actually not an approval of a management plan. This is a presentation of what they plan to do just this year in the watershed. So just what the maintenance activities are, what the allowable management harvest would be, those sorts of things. There's actually a requirement in the plan that says on a per annum basis, they will make a presentation to the city council. We have done that presentation to the city council. There was one clarification, however, that said typically it's supposed to happen actually earlier in the year, prior to anything happening in the watershed. And so that was the difference here. And typically that's supposed to happen in January, so that when they do their contracting, whether it's for roads or maintenance or whatever, they can get those out in February. We just didn't have time this year, which is why we put it on the consent agenda. But well taken. And if the council would like, we can schedule a presentation for this year. We can also for this winter, or we can schedule it for next winter and fall too. So
We just had one in fall.
we did. We had one in the fall. It was after all of the activities in the watershed. This presentation that they're also supposed to be doing in accordance with the plan is to do one before the activities in the watershed each year. So essentially 2 presentations a year. If the council would like, we can schedule that. But to be clear, the management plan, this is just an annual operations plan, not the management plan itself. But
So my reaction to that would be, I would prefer to be able to see what is going to happen as a presentation where we can question what is about to happen, and the part where what was done can be a consent agenda item. It doesn't need to be presented.
Okay.
That because that's an after the fact.
Sure.
Kind of like your activity report is an after the fact.
So now I think we need to keep Mariah, I'm going to ask you a question. So now do we need to approve item C1 separately from, okay, so all those are we done with the discussion for C1? Sorry if I jumped, okay. All those in favor of approving item C1, please say aye. Aye. All those opposed, please say aye. Hearing none. Item C1 is approved by the Forest Grove City Council in a vote of 6-0. Moving on to item C2, Councilor Gustafson.
I wanted the Tourism Capital Grant Award removed because I have a perceived bias, so I won't be voting on that.
You want to abstain from that? Okay,
Mhm.
perfect. Any other discussion on that? Okay, all those in favor of approving, so for the record, please note that Councilor Gustafson is not voting on this. And then all those in favor of item C2, please say aye. Aye. All those opposed, please say aye. Hearing none, item C2 is passed with a vote, or approved with a vote of 5-0. Item D, additions and deletions. Mr. City Manager, do you have any additions or deletions?
no additions or deletions. Thank you, Mayor.
Okay, thank you. Any, item D2, any proposed by council? Seeing none, moving on to presentations. And I'd just like to thank Mr. Michael Skipper for staying up late for West Coast time. I know it's getting a little bit late for you, so I'm going to pass it over to you. He is the Vice President of CFM Advocates, and he handles our consulting for federal allocations. So, hello, Michael. Nice to see you.
Hello. Thank you, Mayor. Good to see you. Council, great to see you all. Sorry I can't be there in person. So I am going to keep this very brief tonight to allow time for any questions, and I know you have a packed agenda, but just wanted to take this opportunity to provide a quick update on our efforts in DC this past year, particularly some of the successes. But just as a reminder of who we are and what we do, CFM has been working with the city of Forest Grove for a little over 2 years now, I believe. And as the city's federal lobbyist, we work with you and your team to develop, refine, prioritize, and implement the city's federal priorities. The result of that, the physical result of that is the city's federal agenda, which is updated each year and serves as a roadmap for us and guides our advocacy efforts throughout the year. And a big focus of your agenda and our efforts to date has been in securing federal funding for local and regional initiatives that are important to the city. So to do that, we help the city write and submit grant and earmark applications, help secure letters of support, and coordinate a comprehensive advocacy effort that includes, talking points, messaging, scheduling meetings, and as well as meeting directly with members of Congress and their staff to advocate for your priorities. And I'm thrilled to say that those efforts produced some great results in 2023. So first, we found out late last year, the city was awarded $250,000 through the Department of Justice's COPS hiring program to hire additional police officers. This is a really oversubscribed and competitive program. There was only 6 awards in Oregon this round, and Forest Grove was one of them. So we were really excited about that. But I'm even more excited about the earmark fund. So Forest Grove right now has $1.75 million pending in the draft fiscal year 2024 spending bills. That includes $900,000 to deploy solar panels that will directly benefit low-income residents in Forest Grove, as well as $850,000 for safety improvements on TB Highway in Forest Grove. So it's worth noting, and it's not to toot my own horn, but 2 earmarks in 1 year is incredible. This is as competitive as federal funding gets. Your projects must make it through several stages of vetting, not only by your congressional delegation, but by the House and Senate Appropriations Committee. On top of that, House members can only submit 15 projects in their district, and sometimes they're not even able to secure funding for all 15 of those. And similarly, in the Senate, they receive hundreds and hundreds of requests each year and are only able to secure funding for a fraction of those each year. So my goal is always to try and knock one project off your agenda each year, and anything more than that is fantastic. And thankfully, 2023, by that metric, was pretty fantastic with 3 projects for $2 million. Now, I do want to stress, I'd love to just celebrate, but the COPS funding is final, the $250,000, but the $1.75 million is not quite final yet. So you're included in the draft House and Senate spending legislation, but we still need Congress to pass that legislation. So it's fiscal year 2024 is the spending bills we're in. Fiscal year 2024 began in October of 2023. So we are a little delayed, and we are operating under what's called a continuing resolution, yet another continuing resolution, until March. And essentially what those do is just keep funding levels the same and buys Congress more time to resolve differences and ultimately pass the final legislation. So if all goes well, and I'm increasingly optimistic it will, the spending bills with Forest Grove's $1.75 million in it will be passed sometime in March. The only real danger is if the appropriation talks just completely fall apart and House Republicans and Senate Democrats are unable to resolve any of their differences, and they just throw their hands up and they pass a year-long continuing resolution. That just extends funding levels the whole fiscal year and eliminates all the pending earmarks. I don't think that's going to happen. It's not really in anyone's best interest for that to happen, and it hasn't happened in a long time. But I just want to have a little disclaimer that it's not quite final yet. But for now, a really great year for Forest Grove at the federal level. And it's a big testament to you all and the team you have here at the city. I just saw Paul was recognized, and Jesse and Greg and all the folks there that helped me every step of the way. They deal with my late night phone calls when I need last minute information to get to congressional offices and things like that. So you have a really great team here, and you should be proud of that. And that's reflected in the city's success at the federal level. And speaking of that, I'm keeping your team busy. We're still waiting on FY 2024, but we're getting started on FY 2025. Senators Wyden and Merkley have opened up their earmark or congressionally directed spending portals, and those are due at the end of the month. So we'll be submitting another round of projects from your 2024 federal agenda to the Senate offices later this month, and then to Congresswoman Bonamici as well when her process opens later this spring. So I think if I have time for a quick little political update, I'm happy to stop, but just a few minutes. So as you know, there are really tight margins in the Republican House and Senate, democratically controlled Senate, which means individual members have a lot of power to slow things down they don't like or stop them altogether. So for that reason, I don't necessarily expect a lot of landmark legislation for the remainder of the year. Right now, I think literally right now, they may have gone home for the night, but the Senate is debating an aid package for Ukraine and Israel and Taiwan. And it looks like that's going to get through the Senate. If that does get through the House, I wouldn't be surprised if that's one of the last consequential pieces of legislation that passes, apart from FY 2024 spending before the election. Excuse me one second. And then on the elections, I learned a long time ago not to get into the prediction business, but there's some insight I can provide, not really on the House. With every member up for re-election in the House, you really don't get a good sense of which party has the upper hand until later in the summer as we get closer. But the Senate, the dynamic allows us to analyze kind of the likely outcomes. And Democrats are facing a very, very tough, if not impossible, road to defending their one-seat majority in the Senate. And the reason for that is not every Senate seat is up for re-election every 2 years. About a third of them are. So there are 33 seats up for election in 2024, and 23 of those are held by Democrats. Just 10 are held by Republicans. And what makes things even worse for Democrats is that 3 of those seats are in states that former President Trump won in 2020, in Ohio and West Virginia and Montana. Not to mention other battleground states like Nevada and Arizona and Pennsylvania that could really go either way. And Republicans, they only have to pick up 2 of those seats to regain the majority while defending their 10 seats. But their defense isn't that hard because their 10 seats, the closest thing they have to a swing state is Texas. So there's not a lot of danger for Democrats to pick up any of those 10 Republican seats. So Republicans are mostly playing offense while Democrats are playing a lot of defense on the Senate side. And on the presidential side, obviously, I think everybody knows just as much or as little as everybody in DC. It obviously looks like we're heading towards a rematch of 2020. I think it's far too early to try and make guesses on how that may turn out, or even how that may impact congressional races, which it will significantly. But that's similar to the House. We kind of got to wait a while until that starts to firm up a little more. But I think that's all I have for you today. So I just want to reiterate how much I and CFM, how much we enjoy working with the city of Forest Grove. It's been a lot of fun, and I'm glad to have some good wins this year, and looking forward to some more in the future. But thanks again for your time, and happy to answer any questions you have.
Okay, great. Any questions? I have a question. Well, first of all, I just want to say thank you. I think, you highlighted the work our staff does, and I completely agree, but it's a great team. When I went to DC last spring, I just felt really prepared by your one-pagers and the information. And then we called Keith for the community solar panel for some statistics, like some data, and he responded within minutes. And so it's really just a collaborative team approach where everyone's pulling their weight and we're really prepared. I think that's why we were so successful is everyone did the work that did their part, how they were supposed to do it. So my question is, moving on to the next fiscal year, when we go to lobby for some funding and advocate for some funding, are we gonna not worry about the so we got awarded 2 projects verbally, right? But we haven't received funding. So I guess my question is, do we take those off our list and focus on some new projects, or do we, because we haven't received funding and they're really great projects and really needed, do we keep pushing those projects?
Yeah, that's a great question. So we will, and it's kind of, there's kind of a layered answer. So we will, for the most part, just take those off and we won't resubmit those because we're planning on those being awarded, and the congressional delegation is planning on those being awarded. And they've asked if your projects are included in the FY 2024 bills, please don't resubmit them because that should be approved here shortly. But for projects like TV Highway, the city still needs a lot more than $850,000. So what happened there was just a little unfortunate. Congresswoman Bonamici, she submitted $3 million for TV Highway, which is pretty much the maximum you can get on the earmark front, aside from a few outliers. But the way it worked out with Republicans in control and Democrats in the minority, she just wasn't able to get the allocation that she would have liked. So the project got dropped down to $850,000. So that's one project that we will still be requesting more money for, both through the earmark process as well as we've been pursuing grant funding for that as well, and submitting these larger Department of Transportation grant requests. That your team has also been very helpful in submitting. These are long, 20, 30-page applications that we're requesting upwards of $15-16 million to complete safety improvements throughout the whole corridor. We just haven't been successful in that yet. Those are every federal funding stream is competitive and oversubscribed, but I think there was 1 or 2 awards in that program in Oregon this past year. But we're continuing to improve the application each year, and we're hopeful through multiple funding streams to secure a lot more funding for TV Highway.
I have one more question. The Department of Transportation, did they said if we didn't, that they would give us feedback about our application.
Yeah.
Did we get that feedback?
Not yet.
Okay.
But that's something they schedule, like a half an hour phone call, and they'll go through all the positives and negatives.
Perfect.
And then we use that to improve it and reapply.
Perfect. Any other questions? Okay, seeing none. Thank you for staying up late to chat with us, and we'll see you in a month or so. Okay.
Yeah, looking forward to it.
See you later. Thank you. Okay, so our next presentation, we're going to bring back Metro Councilor Juan Gonzalez. He's going to come up and give us a Metro update. Welcome again.
Okay. Does this turn on by itself?
Yep, you're hooked up.
Didn't know if I need Councilor Marshall to help me again. All right, excellent. Well, council, mayor, thank you so much for allowing me to share an update with you. For the record, my name is Juan Carlos Gonzalez. I represent District 4 on Metro. I've had the pleasure of doing this job for a little bit over 5 years now. And I want to take a moment to just recognize, I don't want to turn around because the mic is right here, but want to recognize Paul for the 25 years of service. I think it's exceptional when someone commits themselves to a community to that extent, and I just think it's something that should be celebrated, and it's something that's really beautiful. So anyway, thank you, Paul, and for all the Forest Grove staff that helped make this a really special community in all the ways that I know that you have grown to. So if we could go to the next slide, please. All right, so just the presentation today is going to cover some snapshots and highlights from a few of the different areas in the work that we're doing at Metro. And we're a big agency and we do a lot of things. So I worked with my staff to get a few things that I hope that that will be interesting to you. And of course, if you have any questions about anything you see on the news or anything you see in any of our communications, I'm more than happy to either respond or get the answer to you if I don't know it. So For folks that don't know, Metro oversees the region's garbage and recycling system, which is I have the pleasure of sitting on you for the CEP committee with the transfer station here. But we also play a key role in the region in keeping our streets clean, our neighborhoods clean when it comes to illegal dumping. So over the last year, we have doubled our RID patrol, which stands for Regional Illegal Dumping Team, crews in the last year. And we now have 6 crews that move across the region to keep things clean. You can visit ridpatrol.oregonmetro.gov and find all the different ways that you can access. You can call if there's mattresses, if there's bulky waste that's just left on the side of the highway or somewhere in your neighborhood. You can call this number, and a patrol and a crew will be deployed to you. There's a lot of trash, as you can imagine, that we pick up around the region. It looks like in the last year, 770 tons of illegal trash that we've helped clean up, including on our highways and that. I think a few of you know too that I've hosted an annual cleanup on TV Highway, and we clean up a lot of trash, and it never adds up to a ton. So there's a lot of trash. There's a lot of trash out there, and I want to thank the RID Patrol team for all their hard work as they work to keep our community clean, our community safe. Something that I know is very important to a lot of our constituents, a lot of residents that call this place home. I'll share too with the RID Patrol. In the last few years, we've also created restorative justice pathways for people exiting the prison system to have pathways, counseling, wraparound services to enter careers. And the garbage sector, especially the RID Patrol, has been tremendously successful in helping people kind of reintegrate into society. So it's been really wonderful to work with those people and to get to know some of their stories and how they value this opportunity. Next slide. On growth management, Metro manages the urban growth boundary under state law and works with residents, elected leaders, stakeholders of all kinds, researchers to plan for future population growth and to learn where our community should grow. By focusing development in areas that have available and appropriate land within the boundary, it helps stretch limited public dollars that build and maintain the streets, pipes, schools, and parks that every community needs. Every 6 years, Metro assesses whether there is enough land inside the UGB for the next 20 years for both jobs and housing. And in a little less than a decade ago, we also created a midway cycle program where we have a full review every 6 years and a partial review every 3 years between that. By the springtime, cities can submit proposals for potential UGB expansion areas, and this summer, the draft UGB report, which includes regional population, household, and employment forecast, will be completed. The public will have the opportunity to provide feedback and comment on the report and any proposals this summer as well. If my memory serves me correct, we have one city of Sherwood, petitioning to add land into the UGB. Aside from that, we do not have any governments, local municipal partners approaching us for an expansion. 3 years ago, we did Metro exercise for the first time a land swap tool in which we were able to bring land into Tigard for the River Terrace 2 project in exchange for some land in Damascus, which is far from being developed into a whole bunch of different things. So we continue to be very nimble and wanting to really help our region address the housing crisis and industrial lands throughout all of our communities. Mayor?
Sorry to interrupt you, but our reserves are on the west side town, and to develop it, the infrastructure needed would be really costly. So, when we look at this housing goal of the governor and affordable housing, there's no way. So I guess my question is, what can a city like Forest Grove do to swap our reserves that really doesn't appear that they are the right lots.
To develop.
Right. They're not the right, they're not the reserves to come in. So what can we do about that?
Yeah, there's a lot of legislation in Salem right now around direct funding to municipal partners for infrastructure, also for building affordable housing. I mean, it's
Yeah.
yet to be seen, but it's one of the top priorities that both Democrats, Republicans, and the governor have stated is a goal. So it's kind of hard to see where we'll know in a few weeks where the funding is there. In my district, which is District 4, covering Beaverton, Hillsborough, Cornelius, Forest Grove, we have the grand bargain that we're working with. So we have our urban reserves, rural reserve system, very small number of designated lands. Unfortunately, or fortunately for the city of Forest Grove, depending on what side of the argument you're on, there's just very little flexibility.
Right.
And Metro is preempted from the ability to make any changes. The grand bargain kind of it cemented that system into state law, and so any changes to give the city more potential buildable land would require state legislation. One of the things that the council and the Metro staff we're very hard on is when we're in Salem is local control is very important, and we want local control whenever possible, so that we're able to manage that. So unfortunately for the cities in my district, it's a bit of a different conversation from many others. But the region does have a significant amount of urban reserves kind of spread out through Clackamas County and the south part of Washington County. So anyway, that's just kind of the picture there.
Yeah. Thank you. Sorry for interrupting.
No, you're good. Hopefully it's informative and kind of shares a little bit about that. So yeah, we're going through a process. We have a stakeholder committee that's going through this urban growth report. And very soon, hopefully in the next year or two, we'll be launching a 2040 refresh. About in 1995, I think we had a 40, 50-year vision, which went all the way out to 2040. That's getting closer by the minute, by the year. So we want to recast a 50-year vision here pretty soon that helps to understand where we want our community to grow. So next slide, please. On affordable housing, you'll see a nice slide with a lot of colors describing how investments of the affordable housing bond passed by voters in 2018 has gone into play. So there's some really good news and updates here. The most important thing that I want to emphasize and celebrate is that the affordable housing bond has actually surpassed all of the goals that we set for it in 2018, and we're actually overperforming in terms of what we had promised to voters by delivering a pretty significant amount of homes to the region. In just 2 years, nearly 1,000 apartments have opened from the affordable housing bond. That includes some here in Forest Grove, to Tiger, to Oregon City, and to Kenton. Some of us in 2022 in September celebrated the Valfrey at Avenida 26. It's named after esteemed former counselor and longtime servant Val Valfrey, and the project added 36 units to even more impressive numbers across the county. So I do have a number here that my staff shared. We're actually 120% above the projected original goal with affordable housing, which is, it's amazing.
Great.
It's amazing that we've been able to, in this time of inflation, building costs, and I think that honestly, it's taken a lot of really dedicated and difficult trade-offs that I think a lot of cities have made in terms of waiving fees or in terms of moving heaven and earth to help deliver deeply subsidized affordable units. What you can see here is that the Metro set a goal of having family-sized units and very affordable units. Very affordable means 0 to 30% AMI. So these are very, very deeply affordable units was a big focus of that. So we're on pace to exceed, and we're expecting that this program will serve over 14,000 people across the life of it. So it's great. Next slide, please. And this is just a project map, which shows you where the projects have been built. The green dots show projects that have opened. Dark blue dots are under construction, and the light blue dots are in permitting or design. The not so good news or the bad news is that by 2025, all of the affordable housing bond dollars will be allocated, and so essentially the construction pipeline is going to go downhill. And the 2018 bond is a 20-year bond, So with the property taxes that we levied against will be fully repaid in 2038. And so there's some thinking to do about, how do we continue to bring resources to the table for this, and we're, actively thinking about that while being really mindful of tax burden that folks are experiencing, that we are all experiencing. Next slide, please. All right, SHS, which is our Supportive Housing Services Program. In August, we received some preliminary results. Washington County has led progress in addressing homelessness across the region, and we should all be tremendously proud of the coordination across each community, including here in Forest Grove. The screen shows some stats that to me popped out, and that shows some of the remarkable success since the start of the program. Region-wide, we've helped nearly 5,000 people into housing and opened 1,400 shelter beds. So that's 5,000 people that have been experiencing chronic homelessness. And, I get, that sometimes people don't believe the numbers I say, but our region is just so expensive and cost of living is so high that the inflow is outpacing the outflow, if that makes sense, of folks in homelessness. So it's I like to think that we need to continue throwing the whole kitchen sink at it until we're able to make a measurable and demonstrable dent to the issue and restore people's trust in our government's ability to address homelessness and create a healthy kind of society there. Next slide. On transportation, I'm very grateful, lucky, fortunate to serve as our region's JPAC chair, which is our regional transportation function for Metro. And this last year, we approved the regional transportation plan. It's a 2-year process. It's our region's blueprint to guide investments for all forms of travel, maintenance funds, all that. It's around $70 billion worth of investment over the next 20 years that we help forecast under the region's priority policy areas, which are safety, equity, and investing in the programs that we care about. There's some big projects, as you know, I-5 Bridge, Rose Quarter, and things like that. And as you're well aware, TV highway investment continues to be a very top priority for me. And I want to thank Councilor Rippey for joining the TV Highway Committee. So thank you, Council, for appointing him to that committee as we work on a bus rapid transit grant with the Federal Transit Administration and moving that project forward. Anyway, next slide. And this is actually my last slide before my conclusion. Essentially, the essence of this slide is that the 2008 zoo bond has wrapped up very successfully. And after some engagement with the community, zoo guest staff, we have completed a new campus plan that envisions the next generation of Oregon Zoo facilities, animal care, research, conservation. And earlier this month, the council unanimously voted to refer a general obligation bond for voters to consider on the ballot of May. This is not a new tax. It is an existing tax that we're requesting for renewal. And actually, we are lowering the tax burden. We're going for less than what we had the year before, if that makes sense, for cents per thousand. I can't remember the number exactly, but I know that it's less than
Renewal, but it went down.
it's a renewal, and it went down. Yes.
Never heard that.
Yeah, I mean it's.
Sorry, I'm like, wait, am I?
Yeah, I mean Metro's in a.
Work I've never.
We're in a unique position. We have a very big tax base. A lot of. So we can levy small amounts, which and generate really significant sum of
Is
resources.
this for the zoo only?
It is for the Oregon Zoo bond. Yes. And next slide. Anyway, that's it. I went a little bit deeper on some areas and kind of offered some commentary that I wasn't expecting to, but I really enjoy being your Metro counselor. I hope you feel like I feel accessible to you, and always, if you want to have a conversation about anything that is of regional concern to you, here as your ally and your partner, and representing the interests of the city of Forest Grove at the regional level. Always. Thank you.
Thank you, Counselor. Any questions? Council President Rippey.
Thank you, Councilor Gonzalez. The question I have is around the housing, and land use and housing, and it's not, I'm not really looking for an answer necessarily, but seems to me, as the mayor pointed out, we're kind of restricted here in Forest Grove. Yet at the state level, they're demanding and mandating more, and there seems to be a disconnect between what it is we can do and what they're demanding us to do. Two questions. One, is Metro aware of this? And two, what can Metro do, or what is Metro doing to try and resolve this disconnect between what they want in terms of a vision and what the reality on the ground is?
Yeah, Metro is very aware. We're fortunate to have the ability to have multiple staff in Salem during state session, and land use in Oregon is just one of those issues that there's always a bill. So we're always tracking. There's different concepts that we're exploring. Some that would allow cities to automatically expand by a certain number of acres per unit requirement, acre per unit requirement. But at the end of the day, most of those kind of sweeping reforms would not supersede the grand bargain, and therefore, that would require a different action for Forest Grove, Cornelius, and Hillsborough specifically. Bethany North is unincorporated, so with the Metro's recent rules, only a city can petition for growth, not an unincorporated area for infrastructure purposes. But it is something that we're really tracking. And specifically for me, recognizing the unique circumstances for the cities in my district is, there's been a lot of urbanization that has happened already in our community, I think more so than other districts. And so I'm looking at it through the lens of, one, trying to make sure that we have enough infrastructure investment, whether it's TV highway, water, sewer, whatever, so that we're able to continue building on that density. I mean, it's the smart growth aspect. And when it makes sense and when it's reasonable to add land to the UGB, doing so in a smart growth fashion. But like I said, there are some forces at play here that are, at the whim of the legislature. So our staff is very, very involved, and working with Westside Economic Alliance and a bunch of others to really understand, what's in the best interest for Washington County and for the cities in Washington County.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Any other questions? Seeing none? Thank you, Counselor. It was nice seeing you. Thanks for the good work session and the good report.
All right, y'all. Thank you. Have an excellent meeting.
Okay, thanks. See you later.
Right.
Item E3 is our Community Development Department update, and we have our Community Development Director, Brian Pohl, coming up.
Good evening, Mayor, members of the council. Brian Pohl, Community Development Director for the City of Forest Grove. Here before you to give what I believe is your last department update about what happened in 2023 in the Community Development Department. Next slide, please. So, at a glance, we started out this year thinking construction would kind of take a dip. It really didn't. It remained pretty strong. We had a lot of turnover this year. We had 3 recruitments on pretty key positions, and definitely kind of impacted our operations a lot. But we did successfully recruit 3 positions. That was the Economic Development Coordinator, Senior Planner, Permit. We also have a new Downtown Historic District, passed through HLB, and then also a comprehensive plan. Dan brought that before you, I believe, last January, February, now in the comprehensive plan. We also worked with Clean Water Services as our partners to work on the nutria issue out at Fern Hill Wetlands. I'll leave it at that, but that was something that we got done this year that I thought was really well. Forest Grove continues to grow. You can see the Portland State population estimates right there. In 2021, we were at 26,42, 26,952, now 27,500. Slide, please. We also brought before you a tourism event sponsorship program, tourism capital grant program, the first of which was awarded tonight. A tourism marketing RFP, grant award for the TD Highway Access Management Plan. This is something that we just got recently. This is an award from DLCD to sort of as the follow-up to the TD Highway Safety Plan, look at the issue of access management. a lot of conflict points there to accessing the businesses and things like that. I want to think about the smartest ways to handle that. We also did an Arbor Day planting at Talisman Park. Next slide, please. Just to get an idea of how busy the planning department was, we had 4 big subdivisions come through. We added 276 new lots in 2023. We had 38 different land use applications that came through our doors. We held 7 planning sessions, many of which are on your desk as well. Next slide, please. Building. We saw a total number of permits just in Forest Grove for 806 permits. That's 64 new single-family buildings. A pretty jaw-dropping number of 3,389 inspections in 2023. And a total valuation amongst all construction types, $62,895,000. The total revenue for Forest Grove into the building department, including system development charges, was $3.387 million. If you just look at the permit charges, we brought in $604,000. Just to kind of give you an idea of how much of that total revenue it stays in the department as permit revenue, 17.2%. So a lot of that is system development charges. This is a very busy slide. I kind of included it there just so you can kind of look at it on your own. I don't want to go through the whole thing today. But this gives you an idea of all those 806 permits that we brought in and how they were kind of broken down. We see a lot of residential mechanicals, things like new water heaters, new mini split systems, things like that. We do see the new single-family dwellings at 64. Next slide, please. And then as far as valuation, it shouldn't be that surprising that the largest bulk of valuation comes from new single-family, 25.5 million, and commercial structural at 27.6. Next slide, please. We had a lot of significant projects come through this past year. Brown's Farm, that finished up in 2024, but it felt fair to call it 2023 because Saw out at 47 at Sunset. Parkview Terrace, the Evers property annexation that's slated for some development here soon. Having a pre-app this week about that property. At the Kyle Park rezoning, the Pod Village that you'll see the final action on tonight, Bailey Meadows, Ritchie Ridge, and we did a street treatment. Slide, please. As far as council objectives, implementation of the housing needs analysis, there were some recommendations in there that we have had work sessions on in March, July. Just by way of mentioning, the council has already done a lot of this work. We adopted density incentives, nonprofit property tax exemption, housing development zone. Also have the deferral of city-controlled STCs for affordable housing. That allows those projects to kind of bankroll a little bit better, kind of put off those fees till the very end, closing all the loans and everything. And reduce fees for ADUs. We now applied the manufactured home rate for the transportation development tax, and we don't charge a sewer. That brought that fee down about 13. We still have some work to do. We still want to talk about annexation agreements, and this is being considered right now in the state's short session. This would require either a sort of on annexation, either affordable housing or a mix of housing types or things like that. We also still have to talk about the construction excise tax. That was also something to consider kind of out of those sessions. And just so you know, if you're wondering about what we call the housing needs analysis, we're now calling that the housing capacity analysis. The nomenclature has changed at the state level. So now referring to this as the HCA. The state has kind of put us on notice that there is so much happening with housing right now that they want us to kind of hold off on our HCA until 2027. They're doing some rulemaking around all the new housing rules. And in order for our HCA to move forward in a way that's compliant with new state rules, they would like to see us put off that. Next slide, please. 2040 Quality of Life Plan. We had a presentation to council on August 28th. The RFP was issued on February 9th. We're we're scheduled to look at consultant selection in April 2024 and have a plan to update this every 5 years. That's a really exciting. That is not quite land use. I think you all know that at this point. This is more about sort of other issues that come up in the land use process a lot of times. You know, we want more retail. We want more, you know, farmers markets, those sorts of things. You know, the sort of quality of life stuff they indicate. That isn't really a land use, but is also makes a whole and complete community. There's going to be a ton of outreach on this, a ton of tabling events, sort of a lot of community input. Really excited to get going on here very soon. Next slide, please. We also worked through the Main Street program, presented that to the council on January 8th, and had a work session on January 22nd. Council passed a resolution supporting the City Club's application at the affiliate level. So that's moving forward. Next slide, please. We presented about the economic opportunities analysis on December 11th. The request for quotes was issued by Miles on February 9th. Kind of wait for that. That work will move forward this spring as well. The URA-owned property, specifically Site B, we held a work session on December 11th. We had a consensus to move forward with an open RFP, prioritizing the grocery store boutique hotel concept. The RFP for that was issued February 2nd. Proposals are due back to the city. See what. And that is all. Do you have any questions? Let me know.
Thank you. I have a question. That I'm really excited about the TV highway grant for the access points. I'm just curious. So the grant pays for the study, and then after that, because it's a state highway, if we want to close an access, do we have to go through ODOT? Like, what's the process? Do we have like a system, a timeline, a process for this?
Well, typically this study would be amended into our comprehensive plan, and then would be the basis for which we could draw some code if we wanted to limit number of access to things like that. That would require pretty robust stakeholder engagement. So if you own your business along the highway, you have a lot of concerns about potentially closing access, restricting access. And so, you know, there's a lot to kind of be determined through that sort of process and how we move forward with the consultant. But usually the way it would work is that we amend that study into our comprehensive plan, some sort of code modification. You'll see this at a couple different times. So it won't be for one. So,
Sorry, I'm in deep thought. But so if a business is already, like they're grandfathered in, so can we change? I'm thinking of a business that has literally 3 access points on TV highway during a highly impacted intersection. So we can't really do anything about that?
Well, you can. I think it's legal to shut down access if you want to. That's typically not the way that staff would be looking at this. We're much more taking the long-term view of, as things redevelop on TV highway, being subject to these new access standards so that it's legal for on TV highway. But there could be some examples of, extreme examples of safety issues where, especially if we have a willing property owner, a willing business, I know there are a couple out there who are willing to look at this and do what's safe, that you could move forward with. We typically would only work through that with
it's a tricky situation, but sometimes I think you have to go back. Like, typically, I wouldn't want to retroactively apply something, but I do think there should be a space when you look at something, you're like, hey, there is much more traffic and there's many more kids walking. Like, there's no reason you need 3 access points for, I'm not going to say what it is but it doesn't. But anyways, I'm just concerned about a couple of those places. Okay. I don't have any other questions. Anyone else? Seeing none, thank you, Brian, for the presentation. Okay, so we're going to move on to item F, public hearings, ordinances, and resolutions. Item F1 is adopting regulations. It's ordinance number 202307, adopting regulations pertaining to recreational and commercial drone operation within the city of Forest Grove, under Section 9.1 of City Code. So I will now reopen the public hearing for a second reading of ordinance number 2023-07, adopting regulations pertaining to recreational and commercial drone operation within the city of Forest Grove under Section 9.1 of City Code. The City Council passed a motion during the December 11th, 2023 council meeting, continuing the public hearing and advancing ordinance number 2023-07 to a second reading. If approved by the City Council, the ordinance will amend the Forest Grove City Code to include regulations pertaining to recreational and commercial drone use within the city of Forest Grove. It says, are there any additional comments or evidence that staff would like to enter into the record? Hi, Chief.
Oh, you're here. Good evening, everybody. No, I'm here if anybody has any further questions.
Yep, you heard the chief. Does anyone have any further questions for staff? I'm seeing none.
No questions.
Okay, so public, I will now.
Wait, we have to do.
No, there's public hearing now, so.
Okay, good. Okay.
I will now
We still have discussion.
I will now call on persons who signed up to comment on the ordinance. Comments are limited to 3 minutes. Please state your name and address for the record. I don't have the sheet. Okay, so there's no. Seeing no signups, is there anyone on Zoom who would like to give testimony or public comments? Seeing none, the hearing is now closed. Boom. Okay. Is there a motion from council to approve the second reading of ordinance number 2023-07?
I move that we approve ordinance number 2023-07.
I second.
Okay, ordinance number 2023-07 was moved by Councilor Rippey and seconded by Councilor Martinez. Are there any additional questions or further discussion from councils on the motion before we proceed with a vote? Yes, Council President Rippey.
And I know that when we first brought this up over a year ago, that people kind of looked askance at me and saying, "What drones? Why?" Again, I think it's timely. The drone technology is far exceeding that of the regulation. And there's two instances which happened this past week, which I think this is very relevant. First of all, I got a call, or I didn't get a call, I got an email from one of the owners of Ace Hardware. They had a drone land on their roof and was wanting to know what to do about that, why it was up there and what could be done. The other thing was that on Nextdoor, I think it was nextdoor.com, there was a neighborhood alert about a drone that was hovering outside someone's window, looking into the window. This is at night, and it was going around and looking in people's windows, which is obviously a violation of all sorts of privacy rights and things like that. So it's not as far-fetched as people may have thought to begin with. It's something that we need, and we need to continue to watch out for this and give our residents something that they can do to protect their rights and their privacy. Thank you.
Thank you. Further comment? Will the city manager please read the ordinance 2023-07 by title only?
Ordinance number 2023-07, adopting regulations pertaining to recreational and commercial drone operation within the city of Forest Grove under Section 91 of the City Code.
Thank you. Will the city recorder please call the roll?
Councilor Gustafson?
Yes.
Council President Rippey?
Yes.
Councilor Martinez?
Yes.
Councilor Marshall?
Yes.
Councilor Valenzuela?
Yes.
Mayor Wenzel?
Yes. The vote is 6-0. Ordinance 2023-07 is adopted by the Forest Grove City Council. Okay, moving on to item F2 is ordinance number 2024-03, amending Title 3, Administration, Chapter 35, City Organizations, 35.065 through 35.095 of City Code relating to Historic Landmarks Board and Community Forestry Commission. I will now open the public hearing on ordinance number 2024-03, amending Title 3, Administration, Chapter 35, City Organizations, 35.065 through 35.095 of City Code relating to Historic Landmarks Board and Community Forestry Commission. If approved by the City Council, this ordinance will amend the Forest Grove City Code to remove the bylaw language from the Community Forestry Commission and Historic Landmarks Board section. Are there additional comments or evidence that staff would like to enter into the record? I have you, Mariah, as the staff person.
So this is just a continuation of the bylaw changes. We found that for some reason, the bylaws for these two groups are included in their codes. This is not standard, so we're just trying to get them removed. That way in the future, when council makes any changes, it's any administrative changes to the bylaws, it'll be an easier process. And again, following the passing of this ordinance, we'll bring another resolution so we can pass the new bylaws for those two.
Great, thanks. Questions for staff? Seeing none, I will now call on persons who signed up to comment on the ordinance. Comments are limited to 3 minutes. Please state your name and address for the record. Okay, there were no one was signed up in the hall. And then anyone on Zoom like to provide public comment? Seeing none, the public hearing is closed. Is there a motion from the council to approve the second reading of ordinance number 2024-03?
So I move
So
that
moved.
we accept ordinance number 2024-03.
I'll second.
It was moved by Councilor Martinez and seconded by Councilor Rippey. Will the city manager please read the ordinance? Oh, wait, discussion. Are there any additional questions or further discussion from the council on the motion before we proceed with roll call vote? Seeing none, will the city manager please read the ordinance by title only?
Ordinance number 2024-03, amending Title 3, Administration, Chapter 35, City Organizations, Section 35.065 through Section 35.095 of the City Code, relating to Historic Landmarks Board and Community Forestry Commission.
Great, thank you. Will the city recorder please call for vote?
Councilor Gustafson?
Yes.
Council President Rippey?
Yes.
Councilor Martinez?
Yes.
Councilor Marshall?
Yes.
Councilor Valenzuela?
Yes.
Mayor Wenzel?
Yes, the vote is 6-0. Hang on, I gotta find which one I'm doing. Ordinance 2024-03 is adopted by the Forest Grove City Council. Thank you. Hang on, I'm trying to organize all my public hearings. Yep. Okay, so we're gonna move on to item F3, order number 2024-03. Sorry, that was loud. I will now open the public hearing on order number 2024-03. Denying the appeal and upholding the director's decision to approve an emergency shelter, utilizing 12 to 16 unit sleeping pods on property known as 2500 22nd Street and Forest Grove Avenue, file number 311-23-000786-RSCH. Disclosure. Before we continue the hearing, do any city councilors need to disclose any ex parte contacts, bias, or conflicts of interest? If so, please indicate the nature of your ex parte contact, bias, or conflicts of interest, and indicate whether you intend to participate in an impartial manner or abstain from the hearing. Councilor Valenzuela.
Thank you. There we go. Okay. So I am a member of the board for the Forest Grove Foundation. However, I can be objective in my discussion and my vote. I don't have any personal interest in the outcome of this order.
Okay. Anyone else? Okay. Are there additional comments or evidence that staff would like to enter into the record?
Thank you, Mayor. No, the only thing I would say is that what is before you tonight is just the order, and the order is just to reflect and memorialize the decision that you've already made at our last meeting. And so that's all that's before you tonight, is just if that order reflects the decision you've made.
Great, thank you. Questions? Do counselors have questions for staff? Seeing none, I will now call on persons who signed up to comment on the order. Comments are limited to 3 minutes. Please state your name and address for the record. Was there no? Okay. I did not receive a sign-up sheet, so anyone on Zoom? Okay, seeing none. Would the applicant like to respond to any? There was no testimony. Would it? Okay. I'm going to close the hearing. Is there a motion from council to approve order number 2024-03?
So moved.
Okay, moved by Councilor Valenzuela and seconded by Councilor Gustafson. Are there any additional questions or discussion from council on the motion before we proceed with a roll call vote? Seeing none, will the city manager please read order 2024-03 by title only?
Order number 2024-03, denying the appeal and upholding the director's decision to approve an emergency shelter utilizing 12 to 16 unit sleeping pods on property known as 2500 22nd Street in Forest Grove, file number 311-23-000786-RSCH.
Thank you. Will the city recorder please call roll?
Counselor Gustafson?
Yes.
Council President Rippey?
Yes.
Counselor Martinez?
Yes.
Counselor Marshall?
Yes.
Counselor Valenzuela?
Yes.
Mayor Wenzel?
Yes, the vote is 6-0. Order 2024-03 is adopted by the Forest Grove City Council. Thank you. Moving on to item G, council communications. So we haven't had council communications for over a month. We had one meeting in December and then no council communications. So we scheduled this so we would have time to share out. So I'm going to start with Council President Rippey. I have you for EDC region, the Water Consortium, and TV Highway Steering Committee.
So the Regional Water Providers Consortium did meet, and we adopted the strategic plan and approved the budget and work plan for this next year. The IGA, I thought we had approved it, but we were not listed as one of the 6 cities that had approved their IGA. So can we check on the IGA that we were for the Regional Water Consortium? I thought we had.
I thought we did too. I thought
it wasn't on their list, and I was.
So I think we did approve the IGA, but we will check with RWC to make sure that we transmitted it to them. So
yeah, that may be the problem. So some of the topics of discussion were what they call service line inventory. That's actually a state level requirement that's going to possibly come down. And what they mean by service line inventory is the state is going to require everybody that is a water provider to address lead piping in their system. And that is not just up to the meter, but from the meter into the house. All lead piping. So that if when this thing comes down, we're going to have to do a random sampling, and I think Greg is already aware of this, but we're going to have to do a random sampling throughout the city of the pipes, the distribution pipes to a residence meter, and then inside the house as well, so that the lead piping doesn't go unaddressed generation after generation after generation of whoever owns that house.
I believe they've already started the process of the testing for lead up to the house, because I know that.
Up
Because
to the
my
house.
house, they just did that about a week and a half ago. They came out and they were testing that area.
Yeah,
They tested
this
the piping up to the houses.
this was indicating though they'd have to go beyond the meter, and it sort of makes sense.
Yeah.
So, of course, I asked the question about funding, and it was like giving a deer in the headlight look. So there is a think it's a fluorocarbon plastic kind of a thing, PFAS monitoring that is going to be required also in our water system. So we're going to have to test for these plastics or something like that. Again, we're going to have to do this, but there's no money to help fund it. And the other topic that we talked about was cybersecurity for the water distribution and treatment systems. And my response from Greg was that we're good to go. We're locked in, and I was impressed with his answer. So EDC met. We reviewed the Site B status and what the RFP was. We reviewed the tourism program and the marketing RFP, but that was it. TV Highway Steering Committee, the January and February meetings were canceled. And unless they reschedule the one in March, I'm going to miss that because I'll be at the NLC conference. This week coming up on Thursday evening is the Fire Services Task Force. Remember, we haven't met since like forever because Cornelius was doing their levy. So I have no idea. It's just going to be trying to get back together and figure out where we are and maybe having a slight discussion of where we want to go. And then lastly, I don't know if any of you live out that way, but the construction on the intersection of Gales Creek and Thatcher Road is progressing. They have opened up Thatcher Road now, and it's already slowing vehicles down. I mean, they have to do a 90-degree turn, but it's already impact. But I do have a question. The sidewalk on the south side, is that actually going to go all the way to Talisman? Because what I see is the molding, the framing for the sidewalk stops at the end of that house that's there, and nothing is out to Talisman. And it sort of defeats the purpose to have a sidewalk.
Not go to the neighborhood.
Exactly. It's not connecting to the
Sure, that's
neighborhood.
Just to make sure I'm clear, the sidewalk on the south side of
Gales Creek.
Gales Creek.
Yeah.
Okay, let me check with Greg, and I'll have him send an email to council answering that question.
Okay, thank you. That's all I have.
Thank you. Councilor Gustafson, I have you at Public Arts Joint Water Commission and the Chamber, but I think you're going to update with the Chamber, or not. But go ahead.
Oh.
I'm just saying our liaison assignment.
Okay. I haven't attended the chamber meeting. I was sick that day. So, let's see. I attended my first Barney Reservoir meeting and Joint Water Commission meeting as the liaison. Just starting to figure out what it's all about, getting my feet wet, so to speak.
Fun
See
included.
that? All right. That's all you get. I will also be attending. Sorry, guys. I've been waiting all day for that. I'll be attending the NLC Congressional Conference as well. The PAC meeting was rescheduled due to the weather, and the day that they rescheduled to, I had a conflict, so I couldn't attend the PAC meeting. I'm on the League of Oregon Cities Broadband and Cybersecurity Committee, and we haven't met yet, but there was an email that went out that Senator Solomon had drafted a right to repair bill. And it pretty much, I actually think it's pretty cool. It controls some of the technology companies from forcing you into only using their repair guys. Therefore, they can charge you as much as they want, or in many cases, we end up throwing technology away because we all know how fast it advances, and it's really just become disposable. So it's meant to be more equitable for people who are looking for a lower cost repair of technology, and at the same time bringing back our repair people to keep some of this technology from hitting the landfills. So that was pretty interesting. The City Club did submit the Main Street of America application, but it's going to take a few weeks for us to know what the results are.
Did they give you a timeline or a deadline? for
About
that?
3
They
weeks.
just- there wasn't a date. Okay.
Yeah, about 3 weeks. So
And that was due on the 31st.
from the 31st, yep.
So we're just thinking like we'll know by March 1st.
Something like that, yeah. Yeah, if I don't hear from them, I'll reach back out. I'm pretty confident. It was a really good application, so we had a lot of support. That's all I have.
Great. Counselor Marshall, Forestry, Parks, and Council Creek.
The forestry was canceled, and we're looking at scheduling that for February 21st. As far as Parks and Rec, we had gone over, we met with grass stains for the Hazel Sills Park to go over the different structures. I know that they posted something on Facebook for voting on that, and they're going to see what the outcome from that is. They voted to move the location to back here. Time is staying the same, so Wednesday is 7 a.m. We voted Brad Befaro as the chair, and co-chair would be, vice chair is Joe Offer. And looks like they have a handful of stuff in line. They're looking to replace large mower with 2 smaller zero-turn mowers, make it a little bit easier for keeping up with all the projects around. They're basically just looking at renewing all the parks. Hazel Stills rolling over to this year. Phase 2 of Sites Park will be going soon. Reaching out to the Historical Forest Grove Foundation they want to look at researching the origins of the park in Forest Grove, where the names come from, how they were originated. We all think it's kind of a cool idea. We're going to start, I think
Who wants to do that? The historical?
so we're looking to reach out to them to see if Parks and Rec can get some
Yeah.
information on where we would get
Friends
that.
of Historic.
Yeah, sorry.
Be good.
We had it listed down there, and we're gonna see where we go. We're gonna start with one.
Fun.
We were gonna task one to everybody. We thought that would be
Yeah,
a little
they're-
bit too much, so we're gonna try one at a time to see how it comes across. So, yeah, and I
Commission
think
members are assigned by their park, by geographic, by the parks they live near. So they could just go to the park, right? That's my understanding. The Parks and Rec Commission members are assigned based on the neighborhood or park that they live by. So that's just, sorry, as a detail, they could do that.
and then kids' night out, February 14th.
Mhm.
So that was for the most part what we had.
What's going on with Council Creek? Do you need a work session on that?
We would like to get a work session going. I think kind of see what everybody's.
Because
stance
they're
is
going to
still on
start
it.
asking you some questions, right? About what Forest Grove,
What
about
our
management,
opinions are
about
is going,
some things, right?
Yeah,
So
and so a work session would be good.
Yeah.
I believe if we could set something like that up, and then kind of touch base with everybody and see what everybody's opinion is on that.
and give you some consensus of things to say. Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool. You good? Yep. Okay. Counselor Martinez.
Okay. So Forest Grove Rural Fire Department District. So transport coverage is better now. They're contracting to Metro West. I didn't hear anything in the last meeting. That was from January. Let's see. There were some decisions made on the Gales Creek Fire Station. People want lights up, and they're telling them that that's really not a necessity because of the lack of personnel. So they're working on selecting an emergency plan vendor who will update the emergency plan. There's a task force meeting on 2/15 to discuss consolidations of governance with Forest Grove, Cornelius, and both rural districts. Prepping for the budget. There's a change in the way that they're going to be changing the way that the volunteer resources are deployed. So they're talking about doing peak activity unit, and volunteers will fill the spots for specific times in that way because it hasn't been working out the way that they've had it so far. Many of the volunteers haven't been available, but they're living in the residences associated with the fire departments. So we're going to change that. And then Sister City Committee, it was decided that the adult and student delegations would come at the same time. We don't know when that will be at this point. The chair and vice chair of the Sister City Committee were supposed to get back to New Zen and talk to them about what their expectations or hopes were. So go from there. In fact, we're supposed to have a meeting Wednesday evening.
Oh, cool. Are you good?
Yeah, that's it.
Did you go to WACA? Or no?
Mm.
Okay, if WACA is quarterly?
Yeah.
Got it. Okay. Councilor Valenzuela.
All right. I'm going to just share with you, make some comments about my attendance to the Policy Advisory Board, which I never do, but it's immensely important because that is, to the county level, and a lot of housing work is done through this group. So, but I'm going to start with the, first of all, the month of April. There are a couple of proclamations. The first week of April, April 1st through April 5th, is the National Community Development Week. And they have sent, because of that designation, they're sending to all the mayors of the jurisdiction sample proclamations. I don't know if we have our own, also because April has been designated as the Fair Housing Month. And now I can go to the work we've been doing in April. We went to the public service building in Hillsborough. We met in person, which is really a nice treat to do that at least once a year with this lovely group. And we went there to listen to presentations by different organizations who are requesting funds. The awards have already been assigned. And I do not want to make a mistake here and say who got what, because I'm not sure if they have been notified yet of these awards. However, there are different categories for this funding. And one of is the public services, public facilities, infrastructure, affordable housing, of course, and the cities for different projects can apply for this funding. So it could be anything from a program that helps homeless teenagers to funding to develop some buildings, affordable housing units, for example, or to fix a road. So there is the funding available. And like I said, maybe next time I can give you more details as to who was awarded what. But, we, of course, try to help everybody. But it's really nice to see this recognition for the CDBG grant, because it has helped many communities to, for rehabilitation of homes, construction of sidewalks, you name it, a lot of things. So it's really nice to work at this level and with that group of people. And I'm sorry, I'm still getting over my cold, so my voice is terrible tonight.
It's okay. Do you have anything for the library?
I do not.
Okay.
I think I missed it.
Okay. City manager's report.
Thank you, Mayor, members of the council. A few things. I'll try to go through these relatively quickly. Just a friendly reminder, we have the annual retreat, February 24th, here in this building. So there'll be 2 packets that will go out later next week. One packet for just the retreat on Saturday, and then another packet that will go out a day later for the city council meeting the following Monday. So there was mention about a Council Creek work session. We actually tentatively have scheduled a Council Creek Regional Trail work session for February 26th. We also have a goals and objectives refinement work session scheduled for then. Typically after the retreat, we have to make some refinements to the goals and objectives. We'll have a resolution in March to pass those. The Regional Water Consortium Resolution, it was 2023-56. It was passed by the council. And talking with Mariah, there's been some DocuSigns that have been exchanged, and with all the partners, just got to make sure that that we got a DocuSign as well. So, but the resolution was passed, and we'll make sure that that gets tied up. The chief posting, police chief posting, was posted on January 16th. It is being advertised nationwide. The first screening will probably be late February, early March. So stay tuned on that. We are receiving applications now. The construction documents are done for the library teen partition and for the library bathrooms. It's just a matter of getting those documents bid and on the street, and then getting some cost estimates so we can proceed with those two projects. It's been posted now for a couple weeks, but we did change our office hours. We actually gained 4 additional open hours for City Hall. It used to be that previously the office hours were from 9 to 5, Monday through Friday. The office hours are now 8 to 5, Monday through Thursday, and then 8 to 4 on Friday. So a gain of an additional 4 hours. So I want to thank Paul, Brian, Pohl, the Community Development Director, and Greg Robertson, the Public Works Director. The other thing we did is we synchronized the hours with the Development Services Annex. So all of City Hall now is on the same schedule. So before we were on slightly different schedules. You heard about this at the Budget Committee with respect to our water tanks and our capital program. Just in light of Michael Skipper's presentation tonight from our CFM federal group, we are looking at grants for our water tanks. We're also working with Michael on if there are any eligible programs, whether it be loan assistance, whether it be financing, whether it be actual grants for water tanks. That is a pretty expensive capital project, so we want to try and see if there's any type of assistance that may be available before looking at water STCs. Brian gave an update on Site B in the 2040 plan. One thing I would add on a different note is for our emergency operations plan. This is an ARP project. We are in interviews. We did do an RFP. We received applications, and now we're going through the interview process to select a consultant. The Charter Commission is done with their meetings. They are preparing their final report. They will be having a couple listening sessions with the community coming up. I believe they are in March. But prior to doing that, they're going to be giving a presentation. The city attorney will be giving a presentation to the council at the next meeting. February after that, they will start some public outreach on what their recommendations are going to be to the council. So expect a presentation from Ashley at the next meeting. March 4th, there is an Eastside Park neighborhood meeting. It's going to be held at NAMS. Parks and Recreation has teamed up with their consultant to put this on. There will be refreshments. There'll be childcare. It will be bilingual. They've done a neighborhood mailing and some neighborhood outreach to make sure that we have good participation. So look for that on March 4th. Last, you may have seen some social media posts on the main pool slide. It's being decommissioned on February 15th. But no worries, we have a new one that is on order. That's expected to be installed sometime in April, and we'll continue to give social media postings as that project progresses. And I think that concludes my report. Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, members of the council.
Thank you, Jesse. Before I start my report out, can I ask staff to do a spring recruitment for Planning Commission, HLB, the Mary's Youth Advisory Council, and EDC? I believe those are the 4 commissions that aren't fully staffed. I don't know if staff's the right word when they're volunteers, but they have vacancies. And so, and I'll just do my MEAC report. I went to Calc, one of the Forest Grove high schools. Calc is an alternative high school. It's over on Taylor Way. So I went there. Let's see, I have all my dates written down. I think I went there. Yeah, I went there on the 6th to recruit, and I'm going to go to the high school ASB class on the 20th to recruit. But if we could get it out, I think, HL. So I started to say that because I was going to give my HLB report, and when I went to the meeting on the 23rd, there were 3 members there and 1 absent. So there's 4 members of that commission. So I'll give my report on HLB. HLB hadn't met for 6 months, even prior to the they stopped meeting during board and commission subcommittee, and then just were put on hold. So some of the projects they're curious about is they wanted to do a check for a mid-century modern district. The first step is to do a survey to see if a district is even an option. They need to hire a consultant. So they're going to explore that. If that doesn't work out, then they're going to do something. They're going to make some. They're thinking of other things they could do with their work plan. There's an Oregon Heritage Conference coming to Forest.
Can I ask a question about that? I mean, keep expanding these historical districts is one thing. What about maintaining what we have? That's my question is, are they even looking at that?
Here's the deal it was my very first meeting, right? So, and the way I liaison is I report. I try to do it, take information both places. So I didn't really want to speak at all. But I believe they had been asking it, and it had been part of their work plan to explore and to survey to see if there was even an opportunity to do mid-century. And they kept getting, for lack of a better word, staff kept kicking the can down the road, or because of this or this. And so I think the members, are on that. But so I think, and then you have a new member who says we have enough historic districts, like we have, the majority of them in Washington County. So it's really about, doing his ideas. The next thing that they should do is the design guidelines for the historic downtown, right? So there have these things on there, but I think I was just trying to see, I don't know what's going to happen. Staff was going to reach out to this consultant to see about surveying for mid-century modern. What I think personally as a council liaison is that there needs more people, because when you only have the majority, the quorum, when you have 4 people, if you have 2, you know what I'm saying? 2 people are guiding a work plan, or 3 people are guiding. It's not. So that's why I'm like, hey, we really need to recruit.
Maybe we ought to discuss this.
Yeah, but we can. And so what they want from the retreat, because I told them, is they want to know what specific DEI initiatives should be embedded in the commission, right? So when we say we have these DEI values, what initiatives should they be embedding in the commission and trying to carry out for the council? That was their question that they would like me to bring back after the retreat. On the 31st, myself, Council President Rippey, and Jesse went to the tour hosted by Washington County for the Center for Addiction Triage Treatment, otherwise known as the CAT, in Washington County. So that, just a friendly reminder, that's the opioid dollars that cities received, and we said, hey, we're going to give them to the county for this project. So they're going to have 2 different physical locations. One's going to be in. Are you just giggling?
Giggling because we met at the other one. That's why.
Right, yeah. So I was like, wait, did I mess up? So one building will be in treatment with 86 beds, and then the other one will be outpatient, one-stop shop services, outpatient treatment, peer supports, health services. The cost is quite a lot. They still have a $3.8 million deficit. So the ask is they're going to go to the state legislature to ask for more money. The other problem they are trying to grapple with is workforce and investing in workforce development, right? Some of us who work in service industry jobs, public education, know that there's not a lot of pay in some different things, right? So they're going to try to figure that out. But it looks like it will be a nice building. Speaking of mid-century modern, I think that building was mid-century modern. Oh, and then, so then on the 6th, I went to Calc. And then I also was invited by the Tualatin Valley Harmony Masters. Some of you who were on council in 2021 might remember that our first in-person meeting back, they came and sang for us. Oh, it was so sweet. But they invited me because they want to get more involved in the community. And so I went. They practiced on Tuesday evenings at the senior center, and it was a blast. I really didn't know what I was getting myself into. But I told them I'd give them a shout out. So they have Singing Valentines if you haven't got your loved ones a Valentine gift. Singing Valentines, I think live in person, a mere $50. An email delivery, only $25. And then they also have a guest night on February 27th. They're going to be celebrating their 50-year anniversary. And they're going to be performing at Taylor Mead June 1st. And just so you know, I did invite them to come perform here before their performance at Taylor Mead so they could have like a little dress rehearsal. Plus, I just had so much fun that I felt like, hey, I actually invited them to do State of the City, to like sing before the State of the City. But the lunchtime State of the City makes it very difficult. And I'm like, I hear you. I was running to it last year as well. So I hear you. Anyways, on the 8th, I attended the Washington County Mayor's meeting, and we were asked by Chair Harrington for a new, like the cities pick a public safety coordinator council, and Councilor Gustafson was for the city of Forest Grove. So Chair Harrington asked the cities so each city, like out of Washington County, one city is a liaison. So Mayor Jones from Banks is going to be the new liaison representing the cities for Washington County. On Saturday, I attended the Valley Arts Super Bowl fundraiser. It's a winner. And I also attended the Forest Grove Education Foundation fundraiser, also a winner. Today I had I almost forgot about R1. Region 1 Transportation. Just a couple updates. I attended that on the 5th of February. They finished, well, I didn't attend because they were having those discussions during council meetings, but we have a 2-year work plan. It's very robust. It's focusing on safety and equity. Like those are the two big overarching guiding principles. So right now we meet every other month. And so there's no way to carry out that work plan with that meeting schedule. So it looks like I'm going to have another meeting to attend. The meetings will probably double. For those of you who don't know, Commissioner Rogers is like the longest serving Washington County commissioner, I think, in the state. He's been doing it, and he has been the chair of Region 1 Transportation for its entire existence. He's been the only chair. It was like a little awkward, but like Commissioner Rogers has done a great job, but he's not running for reelection. And so in the bylaws, it doesn't explicitly say, but it implies it's a 2-year chair position. So he threw his name out to do it again, but he would only be doing it for a year. It's kind of like a little bit of a heartbreak. But so the group decided it was in the best interest for there to be, because the other problem is if Chair Rogers is chair again for a year and then he goes out, well, it's an election cycle. So Mayor Callow, there could be a number of new representatives on R1. So then you're asking people anyway. So the new chair is going to be Clackamas County Commissioner Paul Savas. And then representing Washington County is Mayor Heidi Lube from Tigard. She's the vice chair. So that's, and I'm going to say if there's anything over there. So there's Hall Boulevard pass replacement. So that's going to be closed. Just a little traffic update. And Multnomah Falls Old Highway, you might want to check that trip. That's going to be closed off and on. And then the tentative Hood River Bridge replacement opening is in 2029. So just as like a quick on the work plan, funding strategies, climate safety, equity are the main goals. Okay. So that was that. Okay, then WCCC. I know you guys are getting bored with all my things, but I'll try to go fast. A couple of things. The transportation development tax, it's gonna be an 8.9 increase, and it's gonna go into effect in July. So just as an update. The other thing about WCC, and then they were talking about the JPAC trip to DC. I didn't go last year, but I guess it wasn't organized very well, so there was a little bit. There's a little bit of that. So, and then just tolling is a huge conversation, and just trying to figure out how that, you have guiding principles of equity, and then you're tolling, and then how you're going to kind of resolve those two competing things. Oh, and then final thing is today I also met with the Washington County Chair and mayors. I sent you all an email. There's 2 documents attached. There's a public safety and justice one-pager. So there's considerable stress placed on public safety in Washington County. So within the jails, within the court system. So the county's trying to figure out the best approach to communicate, because this affects municipalities, right? Like this is going to affect all of us. So the best approach to communicating that with the community members. And so they're thinking of maybe, Chair Harrington was wondering, would people come to an open house, where they can go over all this so they can explain it to them? I think that's the idea. Instead of her coming just to council, she would all, and the other thing, she definitely wants the whole council involved in knowing about this. And then also they've been working on a strategic plan update, and right now the feedback period is open. And so that plan is on their website, and there's a survey. She promises, and I don't know, because I just got, that meeting was 3:30 to 4:30 today, but she promises that the survey is really short, but it goes over 6 elements, like the fundamentals of the why, the how, the organization. So anyways, if you want to give some feedback to that. And I think that's all I have. Okay, any questions or anything?
Just one other quick thing. When we were talking about the CEP process earlier, I noticed on one of the slides, it's got a CEPC meeting to hear applicants on May 13th. We don't have a meeting on May 13th.
Well, that's right, because it's a Thursday.
I'm sorry, that's a May. That's May. I was thinking March. So May 13th is good. All right, sorry.
Well, and sometimes it's not a council. Sometimes it's not a council meeting.
No,
right?
I think it's okay. I think it's okay. I read March instead of May.
Oh, okay.
Sorry, my fault.
Okay,
My
cool.
bad.
We are adjourned after 2 really long late meetings in a row.